Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's edition of My Story by AWIS, supported by Plant and Food Research. Um, this month, we're going to hear from Ashleigh Fox, who is the Women in Engineering Project Manager at the University of Auckland. And that's all I'm going to say because she's going to do the talking for me. So over to you, Ashleigh.
Thank you very much, Emma. Kia ora tātou, ko ingarangi te whakapaparanga mai. Engari ko Zimbabwe te whenua tupu. Ko Waitakere te kāinga. Ko Ashleigh Fox toko ingoa. I'm really excited to be able to tell my story today. I didn't really know what people would find interesting, so I've kind of tried to group things into themes of learnings over my time. And I also want to try and share the things that didn't go to plan, because I think often those parts get left out and it seems like someone's career has gone so well. So I'll try and balance that out. The other thing I need to say is that what I say is my own views and not necessarily those of the organizations that I mentioned during my talk. So the title I've chosen for this is Every Contact Leaves a Trace, which is known as Locard's exchange principle, which is a very famous forensic science principle, meaning that everyone involved in a scene brings in something and will take something away. And I thought that that is really applicable to life as well. So that's where I'm going. So I grew up in Zimbabwe in the 80s and 90s, and you get used to things like locking all your doors and turning on security alarms, having bomb threats at school and riots in the street. But I do think we were quite insulated from the worst of it, living where we lived in the city. But by the year 2000, we were old enough and things were getting bad enough that we realized it was just not a great situation to be in. And my parents couldn't justify staying there anymore. So we had to pack up and move our lives. And we were originally going to move to Australia, but we stopped off in New Zealand on the way and realized it was really nice here. So we settled in Hamilton, and yeah, didn't realize how strange our previous lifestyle was until we lived in New Zealand. Like, I remember being fascinated as to why there was a whole aisle of bread, like why people needed so many different types of bread to choose from, because we were used to just, bread is bread. And so, yeah, it took quite a lot of getting used to just having so much choice and freedom. But for me, it was also a chance to explore opportunities that I had never been exposed to before. So at school, I took fencing and rowing and piano and guitar lessons. I did drama, and I even got to ride my bike to school by myself, which I'd never been able to do in Zimbabwe. So I really enjoyed that move for that reason. The pictures that I'm showing you, so on the one side is my old dance studio back in Zimbabwe. I'm not in that photo, but that's the dance studio we used to dance at, and I'm carried on with dancing when I moved to New Zealand as well. And my highlight was doing Cats at the Civic Theatre in 2009. I was really excited to be part of such a big show and such a grand stage. And I still do a little bit of dancing today, actually. That's yeah, my happy place. But one thing that that happened to me that I can relate to a lot of the people that I work with today is at my old school, I had one of those classic experiences where my maths teacher made a negative comment about a low grade that I happened to get for one test. And I just decided then and there, that's it, I'm dropping maths. I'm going to study languages and become an interpreter for the UN. And that's it. But luckily, after that, the year after that, we immigrated. And being in sixth form in New Zealand at the time, I had to take science and maths subjects again, and realized that I actually really did enjoy them, and I could do them, and I could stick with it. The other thing that moving to New Zealand did was open up a whole new world of international travel. And luckily, my partner has itchy feet too, and so yeah, we visited a new country almost every year after we met. So it's been really, really great. One of the other classic things at the time, like many teenagers, I was obsessed with CSI, that had just kind of come out on TV, and I wanted to fight crime, but I just wasn't sure how to go about it because I was too scared to be a police officer. But my sixth form biology class got to visit Waikato University for a lab open day, and we got to extract kiwi fruit DNA. That was just my wow moment, and that really hooked me into biology and genetics. And another part of that day, we had a speaker from ESR. I think she might have been working in the drugs lab, talking about her work. And I just thought, oh, well, of course, this is it. This is how you use science to fight crime, and I can do this. So that was my goal from then. But when I started university at Waikato, I was doing a science and a law, kind of a mixture program. It wasn't a conjoint, but you had to take papers from both. And really, it was too much for me, I have to say. I really didn't want to admit it, but having to do 3-hour labs for biology and chemistry, and then trying to do all the reading of the case law for the law courses, I just couldn't handle it. So yeah, dropped law in the second year and concentrated on the science. One of the other things I found during my undergrad was I had to go back and take an extra first year paper in maths, and I had to alter my plans for postgrad as well, because I just did not get the right course advice at the time. And it may be that I didn't know what I needed to ask. But this, again, is one of the drivers for me today, is making sure that people in school know where to find the right advice and can get the right advice. And they don't have to kind of struggle later on. While I was studying my undergrad degree, I also started working part-time at Hill Laboratories. And I really credit this experience with gaining my future employment, because it gave me so much hands-on work experience that you don't really get in the university courses. And a huge range of skills as well, because I moved through different departments. I worked in the bench chemistry, instrumentation, microbiology, air quality testing. And so it also helped me figure out which parts of working in a science lab I liked and which parts I didn't. And while I was still working there, I began a postgrad diploma, and that was a huge mental shift as well, moving from undergrad to postgrad. Like suddenly you actually have to think for yourself rather than kind of regurgitate what other people have told you. So I still remember my very first genetics class. We all sat down, and there's about 12 of us in the class, and our lecturer was like, write this down, never embrace mediocrity. We were all a bit too afraid to ask him to explain, but that actually became a mantra for me for a very long time, and I interpreted it to mean you should always do your best and try your best and expect the same thing from others. So yeah, that still stuck with me today. Then yeah, one day I was sitting in the tea room at my Hill Labs job, and I was reading the newspaper. Yes, this is how long ago it was. And my dream job was advertised in the paper, a lab technician at ESR in the forensic lab up in Auckland. And I was so excited. I agonized over my application and filled out the online form, and I heard nothing. I left it for a little while, and I think it was actually my mum that said, well, why don't you contact them and find out, you know, what you can do to improve your chances in the future, why you didn't get selected. So I did. So I wrote to the HR contact person, and lo and behold, they invited me for an interview. So it was very strange. But yep, drove up to Auckland for a very intensive interview that included a practical test in the lab to see if I could make up a particular solution. Never had to do that ever since. but I must have done an okay job because I got offered the job and spent the next three or so years working in the lab, looking after all of the equipment, the crime scene kits, making up all the chemicals and reagents that they need in the lab. And I mean, that was great and I loved it, but of course I wanted to do more. So I actually tried twice to get promoted to a crime scene attending technician, so you could actually go out to the scenes and collect evidence and bring it back to the lab and process that evidence for analysis. So yeah, it was really, really disappointing to be turned down the first time. But I guess it taught me resilience. I got through it and figured out what I needed to do better. So the next time I applied, and the next time, yeah, I got promoted and got to go out to crime scenes. So yeah, it was an interesting time. The thing about working in forensic science is you can't really talk about your work because of the confidentiality and the privacy of the people involved in the cases that you're working on. And a lot of them end up in the press as well. And you have to think about your own safety and security. So yeah. However, while I was working at ESR, I decided to go back to study and I started my Masters of Science in Forensic Science at the University of Auckland. It's my weighty tome representing my research that took 2 years because I did it part-time. But this opened up another door. By doing this research and publishing a paper, I got to present it at academic conferences, so I actually could talk about our work. And once again, this was an opportunity for travel, so I managed to get to Tasmania for a conference. I presented at the NFI, the National Forensic Institute in the Netherlands, and even Slovakia, conference in Slovakia to talk about research. So it was really exciting and really opened up more doors. My other claim to fame is while I was working at ESR, some people approached us to get some help with a TV show, and no one else really wanted to. No one had time, and I was like, "Oh, I'll help you. What do you need?" And it was the props director wanting to make the crime scenes in the show look more realistic, and so wanted to go through all of the gear and what we have to wear, and helped him out with that. And while I was doing that, I said, "Well, why don't you come to Queenstown and be in the scene with us?" I was like, let me think about that for a second. Oh, of course. So yeah, I actually got to speak a line as well in the first season of Top of the Lake, and pretend to excavate what we thought was a body. Yeah, it was another really fascinating experience to see behind the scenes of a TV show. And yeah, every now and then I still get messages from people going, "Is that you in that show?" It's quite funny. Around this time as well, I also started volunteering with Future in Tech. So Future in Tech was part of IPENS, which is now Engineering New Zealand. And they don't have Future in Tech anymore. They have the Wonder Project. But this, yeah, going back a few years, Future in Tech ambassadors would go into school classes, usually senior high school students, and talk about their career paths, day-to-day work in jobs in STEM. And obviously, forensic science is a subject that all the teachers wanted their kids to hear about. So I did that a fair bit. And I actually started to find that I was enjoying going and talking about the work more than I was enjoying doing the work itself. So I reached this point where my dream job wasn't my dream anymore. And that was really hard to accept after the years and the blood and the sweat and the tears that had gone into trying to achieve this dream. So I had to figure out what was I going to do next. I didn't want to disappoint anyone who'd been supporting me along the way. And I tried a few different things within the company of ESR that I could yeah, satisfy some things that I wanted to do, but still keep my job. And yeah, I don't really like being told that I can't do something. So in the end, I resigned and went backpacking around Europe for 3 months by myself. Best time ever. And yeah, it was such a great experience. When I returned home, I had to find a job again. So many applications, so little response. It was very depressing. And I'm sure many other people have gone through this as well. But eventually I got an interview with the biological anthropology team at the University of Auckland. I had to Google anthropology because I didn't know what it was. But yeah, I was offered a job as a lab technician in their team, and I discovered the university was a place that really aligned with my values. The teaching and learning that happened, like the continuous lifelong learning, not just for students but for staff as well, and how all of that was so well supported. Just more than anywhere else that I had worked. It was just fantastic place to be. I really loved my time in that team. I was there for about 4 years. I got to learn how to operate all the different equipment in the labs, because then I could show the students how to use it. I got to set up a fake excavation site, and we ran a workshop for forensic scientists and archaeologists to work together to improve burial excavation techniques. So it was a great way to kind of combine my two previous jobs. What else did we do? Yeah, I got to redesign the ancient DNA lab. And this is another area where the skills and things I'd learned working in forensic science really applicable, because ancient DNA is obviously very old DNA from excavations, and the potential for contamination is very high, and it's really important to keep your processes very clean and contamination free, which is exactly the same as forensic science. So yeah, I got to visit Otago's ancient DNA lab for that, because we didn't have another one in Auckland. The academics decided they wanted to do more work in isotope analysis. So in order to set up the lab to do that, I went over to Cape Town for a course in isotope analysis, and also visited a lab in the University of Calgary to find out what equipment we needed and how to set up the procedures and stuff like that. So again, really great for travel, but every new thing that I had to learn, it meant that I had to reach out and find people who were already doing that work, who already knew how those instruments worked. So we had an SEM and an FTIR in the lab, and so I had to find people across the university who knew how to use those so that we could use them too. And yeah, just making those connections and learning from those other people was just fantastic for me. I also had to manage all the health and safety in the lab, and the MPI, so Ministry of Primary Industries, because we were a transitional facility, which means we were importing restricted materials from other countries. So we had to manage those properly. And developed outreach activities to have schools come visit the lab or to take out into classrooms, managed all our student volunteers, and yeah, again, I was doing less and less of the actual lab work, but I really, really loved being that kind of the person that facilitated it for everyone else. After 4 years of that, I did a leadership course that the university offers for staff, and was forced to reflect on my own career progression and aspirations, as you do. And I figured there's kind of a point in a science career where it seemed like I'd have to choose between doing research or supporting research, or moving into management, like lab management or people management. And I didn't really want to do either of those things that passionately. So what I did love was that outreach and that engagement, sharing with other people how cool our work was. So that was another, I guess, aha moment for me. To take it back a few years, while I was traveling after leaving ESR, I attended this week-long course in Amsterdam called FEAST, which is Facilitating Engagement of Adults in Science and Technology. And this was the first time that I'd really discovered that science communication was a job that people could get paid to do. So it was a real thing. At this course, I met people from all over Europe who had been working on a project to improve the engagement of adults who attend museums and science centers with their children. Because there's so much focus on increasing understanding of STEM with kids and in schools, but there's a severe lack of that understanding, that scientific literacy, if you like, with adult population. So it was a really eye-opening event, and I hadn't really come across anyone doing that work in New Zealand yet either. So when I came back to New Zealand, I collaborated with the Future and Tech coordinators to develop and pilot family science workshops. So these were hands-on science experiments. I think we had about 4 different topics that they could choose from, with parents and children working together to do the experiment. We did that in several primary schools across Auckland for a few years, and it was funded by the Unlocking Curious Minds grant, but unfortunately it only lasted for a couple of years and became so challenging to manage my full-time job and then also figure out how to reformulate the enterprise to be self-sustaining without the funding from Curious Minds. Schools don't have a lot of money to spare on these extracurricular activities, so I didn't want to charge them too much either. So it sort of waned a little bit, and then in 2019 I decided to add a second full-time job to my life, and this little munchkin came along, Finley. So yeah, just didn't really have much spare time left after that. But with the experience that I gained through managing that work, I found the confidence to apply for the Women in Engineering project manager role in 2018. And it was such an exciting opportunity to apply everything that I'd learned in all of my jobs, but with this new context of engineering. So like anthropology, engineering is an area of STEM that is not explicitly covered in schools and in the curriculum. Is very little visibility, and especially with women and girls in New Zealand. So it really spoke to me as something that I could put my energy into. And over the last 6 years, the Women Engineering team has developed a range of initiatives to support women who are considering, or hopefully considering, engineering as a career. You can see some of the examples there. We go to schools and do workshops with the students, hands-on workshops. We do free tutoring. We offer on-campus events. There's a holiday camp that we do for year 11 students. And we also go to expos and career evenings, teacher conferences to try to engage with teachers. We have social media, we have Instagram. And the original aim of the project was to reach 33% of first-year students being women. But it was very obvious right from the start that this was a huge problem that needed solving, and we weren't going to miraculously suddenly reach 33%. So we're still working on this. At the moment, we're sitting at around 25% of women, of the faculty are women. And it's been pretty stable for the last few years. You can imagine, though, we'd set this all up in 2019 and had it all going, and then in 2020, COVID, lockdowns, boom, huge dent in all our efforts. So we're actually pretty stoked that we've managed to maintain a relatively stable number in the mid-20s. We know that the pandemic disproportionately affected women across many sectors. Yeah, we just keep on keeping on, really. The other thing about this job, I guess, is that I I still get to learn new skills. I never thought I would be an event coordinator, a social media manager. I had to learn how to make a website, evaluation, so Qualtrics and survey analysis and qualitative and quantitative analysis. So much that I still have to learn in this job, but of course that suits me really, really well. And I also love that I get to meet so many people from across industry, academia, teachers, schools, students. It's really, really great. And you just never know when the people that you meet might connect with something else that you're trying to do. And I really love making those connections in my work. It is unfortunate that in this line of work, there's very little funding. Government trends are moving away from outreach and engagement support. And there's so many groups trying to do similar work that I think it's really, really important that we actually work together, act collectively, and then we'll probably be more effective with what we actually achieve. So what I've got up here is a few examples of groups that I have personal experience with, but of course there are many, many others out there. So WIN is the student network at the University of Auckland. It's been going for about 31 years, and we really credit them with being the reason for our high retention of women students in the faculty over that time. They do so much to support each other, social events, mentoring, networking with industry, and there's a full-time staff member who looks after women students as well in the faculty. So that's really great. And these students are so engaged and so enthusiastic. They're the ones that happily go out into the schools and the classrooms and help with events to promote engineering and bring in more women. So it's a really great group to work with. STEM Alliance Aotearoa is also working really hard to connect schools and community groups with STEM experts and industry to help with projects that they're trying to do in the school, and just really, again, create that pathway and those connections so that the young students can see a future for themselves. Diversity Agenda and AWIS are groups that work more with supporting diversity in the workplace, so people who are already in the STEM workforce. But this is absolutely crucial and possibly even more important right now than the work that we're doing in the schools, because there's this massive drop-off after the first sort of 5 years of women, especially in engineering, in the workplace, just moving elsewhere. And Diversity in STEM Collective is actually an Australian group that I managed to join. They're relatively new, and they connect STEM outreach teams across a range of universities so that they can share ideas, share their experiences. We discuss evaluation methods, and they're all quite keen to find opportunities to collaborate with each other rather than just working independently and separately. So that has been a really great group to be part of, because there's not very many people in New Zealand who have a job like mine, which is really dedicated to that STEM outreach, and particularly around diversity. So it's nice to have other people in similar roles to bounce ideas off and to talk about things. The last meeting, we were discussing social media engagement with young people and how is that the most effective way to engage with them, and all the things that can go wrong as well. So yeah, it was really, really helpful. So I just want to share one final anecdote, which has really stuck with me from last year. At the IEEE Women in Leadership Conference, there was a workshop called I Am Remarkable, which is actually like an international thing that women can kind of attend. And we had to, one of our exercises was we had to think of an achievement that we were proud of. And most of us were either like struggling to think of something, or possibly didn't want to volunteer something in case maybe they were judged, I don't know. But I kind of put it out there that I couldn't think of anything I'd done that warranted sharing. And one of our graduates was in the group as well, and she said, that's so shocking. Like, I couldn't have completed my dream and achieved my dream without the support that you and the women in engineering team gave me. I can't believe you would say that. And that, yeah, that was another really aha moment for me when I could see that the education, outreach, and engagement work is so important. And I'm happy to be working there now. And actually, my achievements are actually other people's achievements. And that's what fulfills me, seeing other people achieve their dreams. But the facilitator also picked up on this thread that we, and mainly women, we kind of think that, we have to be getting a Nobel Prize to be worthy of celebrating our success. But when we all worked in our smaller groups and shared, something that we had done, there are actually heaps of great achievements. So people published papers, their students were getting awards, PhDs were completed, someone had got promoted recently. And we're just not very good at recognizing the things that we've done well. But yeah, I think this also showed that you actually never know when something you said or did helped someone else move forward or achieve their goals. And so there are some jobs that are really important to be kind of there in the background to ensure that other people can succeed. And you don't know which one interaction is going to create that spark. And so I think this is the low card exchange principle, just on a much, much bigger scale. So yeah, Ngāmi Henry, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashleigh. I didn't know that we had a TV star in our midst. They'll make me go and watch Top of the Lake now.
I don't know if you can find it anymore. It's quite old now.
Well, someone will have it on YouTube somewhere. That was really great talk. Thank you so much. And I think, yeah, it's important to talk about the things that don't go the way that you planned them, because sometimes that's the place where the best things happen. So, and you are remarkable. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. Everyone's gone very quiet, too busy eating their lunches.
All right, I'm okay with that. You can't prepare for questions, so.
No, you can't prepare for questions. No questions. Answered everybody's questions in your talk, obviously.
Right, that was the plan.
Okay, Nicolette's going to find out where Top of the Lake is, so that's an important point to share with the group. If there are no questions, this will be a short one.
People get half an hour of their day back.
20 minutes anyway. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you. I'm sure if anyone has questions, Ashleigh's quite easy to find, being an outreach person. So she's pretty easy to find, and I'm sure that she would be happy to answer any questions if you wanted to ask them in private. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Ashleigh, for your talk. Thank you, Plant and Food Research, for your support of my story. We will be back in October with a person to be confirmed. So please keep an eye on our LinkedIn and our Facebook pages on what's going on with that. We've also got some plans for things to happen between now and the end of the year with AWIS. So those channels are the best places to keep in contact with what we're thinking. And I hope everybody has a very good rest of the day. Thank you.